Hi there, I'm Colin, and today we're going to be talking about some updates to my second batch of soy sauce, show you how that's going. And ever since I started making my own soy sauce, I've been getting a ton of questions from people about all different things related to soy sauce. So why don't you grab a beverage of choice and join me, because we're going to get started and chat about soy sauce. All right, so here's where I've been keeping my soy sauce. We're on the second week, and I've been keeping it right here in my kitchen, right by the sink. So every day when I do dishes, I can just easily remember to give it a stir. And we're already seeing a lot of breakdown, and the beans are getting a lot mushier, and you can see the color and the cloudiness is all there, and it's pretty cool. Now, what's really interesting is with this towel and this lid partially on, I don't smell anything, but when I take off this plastic and I do my stirring every day, the aroma is really pungent. It's like really nutty and sweet. It almost smells like vanilla extract, so that's fascinating. So I've been stirring every day for about 2 weeks, and now for like a month, I'm gonna stir once a week. This has about 3.5 more months to go. All right, so with that update underway, I'm gonna go head on back to the studio and we'll talk about soy sauce. All right, so before we answer your questions, I think we need to take a second and talk about the different kinds of soy sauce, because the regional differences and types of soy sauce will really help you to understand what's happening with your other questions. All right, so first of all, you've probably heard me use the word shoyu and soy sauce interchangeably. Shoyu is kind of like an umbrella term for this fermentation process that yields a similar product. Now, you can use things different than soybeans, which is why you don't just always call it soy sauce, because you could use black-eyed peas or any legume or any grain you want and make your own shoyu, and it can be really interesting and give you different flavors. Now, in Noah Guide to Fermentation, they make a bunch of different kinds, and they were like, yeah, they always come out super similar to soy sauce in a way that connects your brain to Asian food and cooking. So it will still turn out similar, but maybe just give you a little bit more nuance in a different direction. So the main difference between dark and light soy sauce just has to do with how much wheat is used. A light soy sauce has a lot less wheat than a dark soy sauce, and it gives it a lighter appearance and a milder aroma. I'm currently making a dark soy sauce, there show you, and that'll give it a much more interesting, nuanced, floral, herby flavor and aroma. And it'll be sweeter too, which is why they used wheat. It helps balance out the extreme saltiness that can happen by just having soybeans soaking in salt water for so long. So you've probably seen Tamari on the shelf next to soy sauces. And Tamari is a little bit different in that it is the byproduct of making miso, which is a fermented bean paste using soybeans. And so the byproduct, the liquid that comes off that brine, is then bottled, and they call that Tamari. Now, what's interesting is miso most oftentimes has little to no wheat used in the production, so Tamari can be gluten-free if they don't use wheat in that particular batch of miso. If you're looking to Tamari as a gluten-free alternative, you need to make sure that it is gluten-free. Not all Tamaris are gluten-free, so don't just, hear, oh, Tamari, some recipes might be like, Tamari, use this if you're trying to, you gotta make sure it's a gluten-free one. Shiro, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of Tamari. It uses a ton of wheat, and it's usually really light, very floral and nuanced, and it's usually like the least salty out of all the soy sauces. Now that you have a greater understanding of what's happening in shoyu and the different types and stuff like that, let's talk about why Choy is gluten-free and it's called a soy sauce. So technically, Choy is in its own category of soy sauce in that it's called a chemical soy sauce. So they don't actually use wheat in their recipe at all, and they actually don't do anything fermented. They use a chemical process over the course of a few days to break down the soybeans and extract a flavor, and then they add other chemicals and flavorings and colorings to make it look like normal soy sauce. Harold McGee, in his book on food and cooking, has a great section about that, and in there he says, so they use defatted soy meal, which is the residue of soybean oil production, and it's broken down, hydrolyzed into amino acids and sugars with concentrated hydrochloric acid. This caustic mixture is then neutralized with an alkaline sodium carbonate and then flavored and colored with corn syrup, caramel, water, and salt. So that's what's happening with the Choy soy sauce. So if that just made your stomach churn, I understand. And I wouldn't recommend using Choy. I would go for a gluten-free tamari if you're looking for a gluten-free alternative. Tamari is still a part of a fermented process, and so it's going to give you more nuance and more character and ultimately be a better thing for you. So is soy sauce unhealthy? Well, it is true that it's really salty. However, the way that soy sauce gets used, you're not drinking like half a bottle at a time. And in fact, in many Asian dishes, it might be the only source of sodium in a dish. And that's really what it's used for. So it's really no more unhealthy than the way that other cuisines use sodium. If you buy fermented soy sauce that has gone through a fermentation process, it actually has 10 times the antioxidants of red wine, which is really fascinating. Soy sauce is also rich in lactic acid bacteria and has like a high anti-allergen potential, which is really interesting. What soy sauce do I recommend? Well, let's just be very clear. I am by no means an expert in shoyu or soy sauce. I haven't even made my own that works yet. I haven't tasted a bunch of different ones off the shelf. I'm not in the industry. I'm not a food scientist. So take anything I say with a huge grain of salt, please. So with all of those major caveats out of the way, I will defer to an America's Test Kitchen episode where they did some extensive testing of all the shoyus that are commercially available. And I really like their methodology and their reasoning for why they picked their winners. I have also tried all of the ones that they recommend, so I feel confident passing on that recommendation to you. Their number one was kikkoman, which is actually a fermented soy sauce that uses the ancient way to make it. They probably take some shortcuts here and there to be able to make it commercially viable, but I think they're probably the closest to the way that they used to make soy sauce. And they even claim that their koji is like 400 years old, so I thought that was fascinating. So America's Test Kitchen also really recommends the kikkoman tamari. They thought it was the best out of all the tamaris, and they do have a gluten-free one. But it's really difficult to find that one on the shelf, at least for me anyways. You might have it around you, but I haven't really seen it anywhere. So if that's the case, the one that I always see is the gluten-free Sanjay tamari, which is unfortunate because America's Test Kitchen totally railed on that one. They said it was overly salty and plagued by off flavors. So, you know, I would say if all you can find for gluten-free stuff and you're looking at like, do I buy Choy or Sanjay? I've used the Sanjay tamari before and I didn't notice that it was plagued by off flavors. It didn't ruin any dish I ever used. You know, maybe you just add a little bit less than what the recipe calls for because it's so salty. I don't know. I think I would recommend using the Sanjay tamari over skipping soy sauce altogether in a dish. It's probably better than nothing. And it's probably better than Choy because that like weird chemical lab product is kind of bizarre to me. All right, so I hope this gave you a better understanding of the soy sauce products you see on the shelf and gave you some ideas about what to look for when you buy some or what kind that you might want to make. Let me know down below if you have any comments or questions that I didn't cover in this video. So for more information about where I got some of this info from, there's links down below with articles. And then I also highly recommend a few books. The Koji Alchemy by Rich Shih and Jeremy Umansky, Noma Guide to Fermentation by Renee Redzepi and David Zilber, and Sandor Katz's The Art of Fermentation. All of those are going to be books that give you a background on what's happening with soy sauce and fermentation and all that. I highly recommend you read those and try making your own. All right, thanks for watching. Till next time, cheers.